I don't get out and take macro photos nowhere near as much as I want to, so today I thought I'd come out and grab some images, see what I can get, and at the same time I thought I'd do a little video and give you the basics on how to get started doing macro photography. Good evening and welcome to another video. So today I want to talk about macro photography. I think it's about an hour till sunset, so I've got about an hour to make this video. So hopefully we'll get some decent images. I've come to the woods and I'm going to see what I can find. So the first thing you want to think of when venturing out to do macro photography is, what do you want to take images of? That could be insects, it could be wildlife like floral, trees, it could be anything. The possibilities are endless. But the reason you need to think about what you're going to take a photo of is because you need to research where that particular thing is. So if it's a particular type of mushroom, for example, you need to research where and when it grows, the best times to shoot it. If it's a particular insect that maybe it only likes ponds, for example, and maybe you're after a pond skipper, obviously you'd need to find a pond. So researching what it is you want to take photos of will get you better results. But just to start off with, I would say just get out and take photos. Take as many as you can of as many different subjects as you can, and then you'll get an idea of what it is you really like taking the macro photos of, because there are so many choices. So I'm just having a look at this. You see this, I don't know if it's a moss that's growing off the side of there. That could be quite an interesting photo. So I'm going to grab that image quickly. Now there's a couple of things when you're taking macro shots that you've got to remember, and that is the closer you are, the shallower your depth of field is going to be. So to take this image, I'm going to get close and I'm going to try and now if I take a couple of steps back and take the same image, okay, so we've just come across, point you down to it, this little spider web, if you can see it here. Sun was shining right on it just a second ago, lit it right up. So now I want to just quickly show you the difference between backlighting and having the flash on. So I use the flash with macro photography when I'm lighting my subjects, but certain things you can't use the flash on, like cobwebs, for example. If you use the flash on it, it almost takes away the effect. It doesn't make it completely invisible, but I'll show you, I'll give you an example. So that's with flash. I'm just going to wait for that light to come back through to light up the cobweb, and I'll turn the flash off and I'll show you what it looks like backlit. Just going to change my settings and just to accommodate that, because I've got settings set for flash. tiniest bit of light coming in from the side. It's just lighting up the side of this moss. You can just see the light coming through. And so I'm going to grab an image of that and just see what that looks like, because I think okay, so that's backlit, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to light that from the front now. The difference between backlighting and direct light obviously makes a massive impact to how your image is going to look. So just have a think about how you play around with lighting. I've got direct light coming from the front, but you can have a softer light coming, so you can get a not a softbox, kind of a softbox, a diffuser on the front of your flash, and that will diffuse the light and make it a bit softer, and it will make it a bit more interesting. So just have a play about with light, and you'll get different looks depending on how you light your subject. Yeah, so the amount of light that you get on your subject is quite important. Macro photography, getting close to stuff, whoa, sorry, is going to affect how dark your image is. So the more light you can get on it, the better. Your equipment's not really dependent on macro photography as such. You've got true macro lenses, the 1:1 ratios, which is what I've got here, but you can use a 50mm, 100mm, 200mm, and it's just about how close you're getting to the subject. Now, obviously, it is all dependent on that specific lens's focal distance. So the minimum focal distance is going to affect how big in the picture your image is going to come out. So if you're taking a picture of a really small bug, a micro bug, it's not going to come out that big. But if you're taking a photo of a tree bark, for example, you're going to get really close to it and it's going to look quite cool. So don't be discouraged by the gear that you have just because you don't have the most expensive lens or the most expensive camera or the most expensive flash. None of that really matters. It helps, but it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to have a little wander around with the camera. I'll take a few images and I'll pop them up on the screen. I hope you enjoy them, and all right, so I'm just going to have a little wander around with the camera. I'll take a few images, pop them up on screen, and I hope you enjoy them. See if you can guess what they are. Let me know in the comments. So the settings I generally use for my camera when I'm taking macro shots with a flash is ISO 100 because I've got a flash, so I don't need to go any higher than that. And then I'll go depth of field, usually f11, maybe higher, f16 possibly. Flash sync speed, usually 200. I think it's on this camera, and I'll have the focus set to manual, and I'll have my image stabilizer on. The reason I have the focus set to manual is because with a lot of macro shots, depending on what you're taking and depending on the ambient light, so if you're not adding light to the scene, a lot of the times it can be dark. You've obviously got, with this flash, you've got a light so you can illuminate the subject, but the autofocus can hunt a little bit and it can find it a little bit hard to find the subject. So what I find is the easiest to do is set yourself up for the subject, focus in on it. Once you've found your focus, then instead of using your ring, it's just move backwards and forwards a little bit, because the focal plane is so small, just the tiniest little movements backwards and forwards is going to affect the focus on what you're focusing on. Now, depending on the type of camera you've got, if you've got one that you can burst shoot some photos, then what I would suggest is just as you move back, just take multiple photos to the focal plane that you want and then check them out, because it's usually hit and miss with macro photography. The focal plane is so tight, I would probably say 60% of the time you miss the shot. So out of the 10 images you're going to get, 4 of them are going to be focused. So just rock yourself out a little bit until it looks in focus. So for example, this tree, I'm going to focus on this little bit of bark here, there, and I'm going to just move backwards and forwards. Now you can see how much I'm moving, and I'm moving the focal plane massively through the viewfinder. So you don't have to move a load. Whoa. So this looks quite interesting. Make a good macro shot. Yeah, that's quite cool. Quite like that. So there's a couple of tricks that I've seen people do on insects and stuff like that, and that's to put them in the freezer. Not to kill them, but to chill them down, so it brings their body temperature down and it slows them right down. And then you can kind of almost pose them on, like if you wanted to put like a spider on a leaf, I guess. No spiders on leaves for me. I'm not touching spiders. So then you can just pose them the way you want before they kind of like wake up, I suppose. But I've not done that. I've not tried it, so I can't say whether it works or not, but I'm told it works. So one of the other things you can do with macro photography is water. So using water. Now I'll put a couple of images up quickly and show you what I mean. So those images that you've just seen are, they're not actually water, it's vegetable glycerin, which you can buy on like Amazon and eBay and all that sort of stuff. Now what you do with the vegetable glycerin is if you get a syringe, you can syringe it on in wherever it is you want in the photo, and it will literally just stay there because it's so thick, but it just looks like water. So it's kind of like a cheat's way of getting a water shot without actually having the water just running off constantly. The other thing with the vegetable glycerin is if you dilute it, and I can't remember the ratio, something like 60-40, you can then put it into a spray bottle, which you can then spray onto cans for things like products. If you're doing like a photo shoot for, say, a can, you can spray it on the can and it will look cold. So, and it won't drop off. It will just stay there literally forever. It won't run off at all. Whew. What else did I need to say about macro photography? Well, I can tell you one thing you definitely need is patience, especially when doing insects or anything that's moving. If you're taking a photo outdoors of a flower, for example, getting that depth of field so shallow and getting it in the right spot takes a lot of images. So just be patient and persist, and you'll just get it. I just wanted to show that there's so much more to macro photography than just insects. There's so much, it's abstract, and it's just so much more interesting to look at, and getting closer to things and getting out there and taking these macro photos. It's just an awesome world that you can just spend hours and hours and hours taking photos, and you don't even have to leave your house to do it. So I definitely encourage you to go out and take macro photography as a hobby, or take macro photos if you're already taking photos. Yeah, that's me done. Well, that's it for today's video. Hope you found some of these tips. I don't know what it was. Was it tips? Not really. Well, I hope you found the video useful. And I'll catch you on the next one.